Spawnily is the premier podcast spotlighting people of color. Every week, we talk news, what we've been playing, and tell you who's invited to the cookout. Our show is all about talking about gaming through a prism of blackness, because we are the culture. Welcome to Brookago, y'all.
Yo, what the DOB, Brookago, what the DOB. I hope you are all doing your thing. This is Kahlief Adams, and this is the Spawn on Me podcast. I'm very, very excited to have you all rocking with all of you here this evening for episode 350 of our show. Mad love to everybody in the chat, everybody in Brookago, everybody in podcast land, everybody in Twitch land. I am super, super excited for today's show because we have lots of good things to talk about. We have lots of stuff that's about to go down in Brookago. You can see from my face, I am beaming with excitement and joy. And I'm probably going to mess up a bunch of this episode because there's a lot of stuff happening and a lot of things moving all at the same time. So if I do mess all that stuff up, then I apologize in advance. But it's a lot of stuff going on. And the chat right now is full of dope people who are rocking with us and getting things done. So massive love to you all. If you watched our last episode with the Sharpie, the purple Sharpie, like, it is amazing and super, super hype to have had her on the show. You know, when we try to bring on people, we vet them and make sure that they are really dope and they bring good energy and have lots of good stuff in this space to talk about. And Sharpie killed it last week. If you missed that episode, again, go back and listen to that, because I think when it comes to building up the spaces and trying to, again, do stuff that we can control and to build out great things in the space, she is doing that, you know, hands down with Combo Queens and everything that she's working on. And again, I think that's conversations that you really only get on our show. I think that's a thing that you only really see here on this podcast. And I'm excited to continue to bring some of that stuff to you all here in Brookago. This week is going to be a very different kind of show because of the way that things wound up getting recorded. So this week we're going to be talking about and we're going to be sharing a interview that we did a little while ago, like maybe like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. It was before we had Aaron Ashley Simon on the show, and we had gotten a chance to talk to the folks over from Fuser Game. I am extremely excited about that game. I am a huge Drop Mix fan. I'm a big fan of everything that Harmonix has ever done. So getting a chance to talk to them about Fuser was very dope. But we hadn't put that show out yet. So the jumble and the kind of like moving the pieces around to make sure that we had content for all that stuff wound up not working in the way that we kind of planned it. So we're going to play that interview tonight on stream and for all of you at home. So it's pre-recorded in that way. So it won't be a live conversation that we're going to be having with Zoe. So it's going to feel like, if you're listening to the audio version, that we had the intro twice, which is also kind of weird. But again, it's just the way that I've been kind of recording things, because sometimes you can't get to those things live. You know, she's over in the East Coast. I'm here on the West Coast. I don't want to keep people up super late to be able to do that kind of stuff. It makes it a little bit difficult to be able to do some of those recordings and some of those shows in that way. So we're going to have a dope, like 45-minute conversation with Zoe in her interview that we're going to play during tonight's show. But I have some good news, and I'm really excited to share this good news with everybody here in Brookago. When we started this show like 6 years ago, there were lots of conversations about, you know, how this show was going to be made and what we're going to do and how we're going to continue to grow Brookago in a fantastic way. You know, we are now 350 episodes into our show. One of the things that happens when you wind up doing a show for this long is that you need to support it. You need to figure out ways to build not only the repertoire of your skills and the way that you're able to, you know, maneuver within the gaming industry, but you have to figure out ways to sustain a show, not only through monetary means, but through, you know, connecting with brands and connecting with other folks and making sure that you're, you know, continuing to do the job of networking, which is a thing that I think a lot of content creators understand, but I don't think that, you know, a lot of other folks who just listen to the show might understand how much of that work winds up being done during the process of making a show get to wherever we are. Like, I wouldn't consider our show to be big. I think that we have like we have some of the best fans in the world, like bar none. We have some of the dopest fans on the planet and some of the dopest folks in our community on the planet. Y'all all show me love all the time. You rock with me when I'm talking about ribs all the time. You rock with me when I'm talking about washing your hands, washing your butt. And that love continues to be something that I absolutely adore and continues to push me to try to make the show better and to try to grow it and to try to make it something that is something different than what we usually see in the gaming industry. I'm trying to make this the hub for the Black conversation in a lot of different ways and trying to build that out into a space where we can have these conversations and build it out into something very, very special. With that said, again, we're constantly trying to look for people to partner with. We're constantly trying to look for people to grow with. We're constantly trying to figure out ways that we can get bigger and better with what we wind up doing. And I think, let me just make sure that when I play this, it's not super, super loud. Because this is probably I don't want this to kill people's ears whenever I wind up hitting this button. So without further ado, I am super excited to announce Spawn on Me podcast is now sponsored by the wonderful folks over at Reebok. So we are now a sponsored show with the dope folks from Reebok. So I'm going to cut that off real fast and kill that joint real fast. So I'm going to say this joint right here is amazingly cool. So this right here is the classic leather legacy shoe. We are now a partnered program, part of their partner program, and sponsored by Reebok. So it is pretty nuts to say that out loud in a real way. This right here is their dope shoe that they have out right now. So if you type in the chat !Reebok, you can get these kicks. And if you buy these kicks that are not that expensive, you can help support Brookago in a real way. So massive love to everybody in chat who are coming through and making sure that everything is dope. Let me see if that works. Yeah, there it goes. The link is working in the chat. So I am super excited at how this all came about. Who the hell knows how this actually became a thing? But I will say this is pretty effing dope, and I can't be mad at the way things are going. First of all, these kicks are almost Spawn on Me colors, which I think automatically is pretty freaking dope. I think that is awesome. So if you click on the link in the chat, we'll be spreading this news around the internet for a bit. In all the places, we'll be throwing that stuff up on our Instagram. We'll be doing a little bit of stuff when it's not super hot in Portland. I'll go do a little mini photo shoot, take some pictures and get all that stuff together. But yeah, it is a really fantastic day in Brookago. I am very, very excited at what is happening right now for our show. And I have to say that is all because of all of you at home. If you're listening to this show, if you have ever listened to our show over the past 6 years, if you have ever given us any part of your day, any part of any small morsel of the work that you've been able to do with us in this space, this is a part of that growth. This is something that we get to celebrate with you all at home. This is something that we get to celebrate with all of you who have helped to make this a real thing. And getting to now be a Reebok partner and to be working with them and having them support us through, letting us rock and sell their stuff with us and them using our platform to be able to do that work is something that's very, very big. I reached out to the folks who reached out to us initially about this deal. And the first thing I asked them was, is this a thing that other gaming podcasts are doing? Is this a thing that is happening? And from the folks that I spoke with, they said that this may definitely be a groundbreaking thing for a gaming podcast. And that alone is nuts to think about in real ways. And again, thank you everybody in the chat's going wild. Like this is a very, very special and important day for how we're growing. Mad love to you, Jacob. Mad love to everybody in the chat who's giving us love right now. And again, I love the fact that those kicks are like almost Spawn on Me colors. It almost looks like they are literally look at this joint. Look at this joint. Ah! I dropped the box. But look at this joint. These are like almost the Spawn on Me blue. It's like almost the Spawn on Me red. Like it's so much dope stuff in this kick. So, mad love to you, Joey. I see you in the chat, fam. Massive love to you. It's super good. So the cool thing about these kicks is that it harkens back to the original 80s kicks that they put out. The classic leather legacy shoe is a throwback to those for sure. I think if I'm not mistaken, if I go back to the link somewhere, I don't think that they are even over. Let me double check a thing before I say it out loud and I'm saying wrong. Yeah, these are $80 kicks too, which as a person who is really happy with, like, I'm not a sneakerhead in that way because I like reasonable priced kicks. And to see that these are still sub $100 kicks, again, that's a thing that when I think about how I buy shoes, that's kind of my breaking point, is like that $80 layer of kicks. So again, super excited for that. Again, very, very humbled by the fact that we get to break ground in the gaming industry in this way. I've seen streamers get this stuff. I haven't seen podcasters get stuff like this. So I'm, again, very, very happy at how we've kind of moved. Adam, massive love to you in the chat. I see you sent some love there as well. So we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna get a little bit of water. I'm not gonna take a break, but we're gonna run our interview with Zoe Schneider from Harmonix, talking all about Fuser game. And then once we are finished with that, we're gonna talk a little bit about news. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been playing as well. And then we're going to celebrate a little bit and chop it up in the chat and hang out with some of that stuff. So take a minute, check out this interview. We'll be back after it. Please, if you're on social media, spread that love around. A tweet is probably going to go in like 2 minutes or so. Retweet that joint as far and wide as possible, because we want to make sure that we are doing the work and hooking it up for everybody in Brookago. So mad love to you all. We'll take a quick spin around the block and definitely get this Zoe Schneider Fuser game interview underway. So we'll be right back after that. Mad love to you all in chat. Mad love to you all in Brookago. We'll be right back. Yo, so we have a lot of fun folks coming on the show today. We have someone who I've been looking to talk to for a minute because they are going to give me some great information about a game that I'm very, very excited about. Something that I have been anticipating for a long time. When I first saw it, I was like, yo, I need this in my life. So we have to figure out ways that we're going to be able to talk about that today. And there's no one better to do that with than Zoe Schneider, who's going to be rocking with us today from Harmonix Games. So I am very, very excited. I am very, very hyped about having you on the show with us, Zoe. Thank you so much for coming through. I am so hyped to have you here. So you'll be able to have a lot of dope conversations with our folks over in Brookago. How are you?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for coming. I know time differences and all that stuff. It's always kind of a little pain in the butt, especially we have folks who maybe are on the East Coast side of the fence. So
yeah, East versus West, but it's all right.
Yeah, I appreciate you rolling through late night to come hang out with us tonight. So first things first, I think when I have been like marking down all the things this year of like stuff that I am really excited to play and games that I am really hyped to get my hands on, you have the purview of being able to not only share good information about what this game is going to wind up being, but I think you'll be able to give some really great insight, just not only but what Fuser game is going to wind up being, or what Fuser is going to be, but all the kind of small minutia things that people are kind of thinking about in this new streaming versus not having music world. So we're going to talk about that definitely at some point during the show. But first of all, I think one of the best things is like seeing more folks in the space, behind the scenes doing this dope work. For the folks at home who may not necessarily know what the work that you specifically do, can you let them know exactly, what you do at Harmonix and how you're tied to Fuser?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, and like it says, I'm Zoe Schneider, and I'm a community manager over at Harmonix, and I work primarily on Fuser, which is, if you haven't seen anything about it, sort of the next evolution of music games that we're partnering with NCSoft and releasing this fall. It's a music mixing game, so you're able to take some of like the hottest tracks from all decades, all genres, and bring them together, take different loops from them and drop them onto your own DJ deck. I know you're a big drop mix fan, so if you're familiar with Harmonix's work, you've seen something similar to this, but you've never seen it like this. I think we took some of the most impressive music technology from drop mix and turned it into a game that is just so mind-blowing how much creativity you have and how much of your own personal, I want to say sauce, because it's just like such a smooth thing that I'm able to have my own creative ideas and bring them into both freestyle and campaign in Fuser. But it's really exciting. I'm so thrilled that we can finally talk to people about it and get some eyes on the game, because it is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first things that I noticed, because it was funny because I was literally watching a friend of mine stream drop mix, and we were having this conversation about wanting to do, because like co-streaming had just started up on Twitch at the time, and I was like, yo, his name is Josh. Shout out to Wallstormer over at IntelliGame.
Shout out, Josh is my man. He is the best.
I love Josh. Josh is such a good dude.
Me and him, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we actually met over at PAX, the last gaming event ever. We met at PAX East, and he just randomly came up to me and started asking me some questions about Fuser. And then, if you know Josh, it very quickly got into the little things a little deeper, talk about a prism of blackness and, black game devs. And we had an amazing conversation, hit it off, ended up talking for like half an hour. And I was actually on his podcast and have had some conversations with him. And he's a huge drop mix fan. So it's been really nice connecting with him and updating him on all things Fuser as well.
That's so dope. I'm so happy you two got a chance to connect, because Josh is such good people. Like Josh is one of the
really good people.
Best human beings on the planet.
And I mean, you're at PAX, you're looking around, you notice the others, I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like, it is so good to see you. I'm Zoe. And it was so nice to connect with him. Absolutely.
I mean, it is one of those things too. And I was like, well, who's working on Fuser? Cause I was like trying to poke a whole bunch of folks, and former Harmonix fam, Nick Murdy was over there. He was like, yo, like Nick is
happy birthday. It's his birthday today.
Is it really? Oh, happy birthday.
It is. Happy birthday, Nick.
I gotta hit him up on Twitter and be like, yo, happy birthday, fam.
Of course.
And he was like, yo, they got this dope game coming and all this stuff. And I was like, yo, I know that there are folks on the team who we can snag for this. And then he wound up leaving, and then a mutual friend on Twitter shared your information with me and was like, yo, Kai's cool, see if you two can link up and figure out a way to get on the show. But yeah, Black folks in conference spaces, especially in games, is not a rarity in the ways that we used to see it, but it is a thing where you're like, right. I see you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been nice. I mean, I find that, between different communities on Discord and different streamers that just are really doing the work and just being themselves, and that, is enough. And that's so nice to see that representation. And I feel really lucky to be able to bring that perspective, to the Fuser team. There's a diverse population that's working on the game, and it's so nice to be able to like bring that element into it, because it matters. It absolutely matters. If you're talking about a campaign, that's storytelling, and you need a lot of stories, and you want to make sure that, you're speaking to everybody as much as you can. And it's been really interesting, especially this year, how everything's going socially and the different, nothing new, but still very intense. And it's been really interesting to try to kind of find that Black community in this industry and really lean on one another to make sure we get this work done and keep showing up.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic point, because I think it definitely leans into not only, the ethos of what this show is and kind of our North Star is to do that work and spotlight dope Black folks, especially. But it definitely comes through when it comes to the conversation of what I believe is the culture. Is like the culture of what we do in this space moves everything. We are the first movers in lots of different ways. And, of course, entertainment has been a huge part of that push for us over the decades, but it's been so dope to see all of us kind of now having this next renaissance within the tech spaces where the conversations around culture and music are ones that we can have all those intersects with. And I think that that's really been super cool. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to dig into Drop Mix and Fuser was because of that too, where I felt like our culture doesn't really get a chance to shine in the ways that we always want them to, but music is definitely one of these broad spaces where a lot of the connective tissue comes together, and it feels like we are able to constantly show how great we are in those spaces. And Drop Mix, you go back a couple generations to DJ Hero, you go through all the stuff that's in those spaces, and you have all those mixes of things. And I was talking to Josh, and I was like, yo, Josh, we got to figure out a way to basically DJ our drop mixes on Twitch. And we couldn't figure out a way to make it work. And I just tried, and I messed it all up. But when I saw Fuser come into the space, I was like, ooh, this is going to be that thing that bridges that gap for me where, I still love drop mix. I think that the technology in that thing, like there was one time when I was like, I really just want to pull a dev into a room and tell me how the NFC stuff works, and tell me how all that stuff works with the dropping a card on a card and it still works, and on all the stuff. But Fuser feels like that next iteration, that next kind of jump between what that physical thing was, which I love, and then this new digital thing that's going to be in the space too. When it comes to the music parts of these kinds of games, the hardest thing I would expect to the conversation to be is one, licensing of all that stuff, because that stuff always takes a really long time to get done. But also, like, as a former college DJ, crate digging is a huge thing, right? So it's like figuring out what you want your set to be in a game that literally puts you on a stage, has you DJing in front of digital crowds, and then probably when you're doing this on Twitch in front of actual people. What was the conversation when you were kind of going through the drop mix era, and then kind of saying like, all right, so we need to make the new thing. We need to try to figure out what this next thing is going to wind up being, and how that transition wound up being Fuser.
Right. So like you alluded to, the drop mix tech, unbelievable. I mean, if you can see behind me, I am a musician myself, and I really love music. And that's true of, 99%. I mean, everybody at Harmonix love music, and most people are musicians. Most people are amazing musicians. So we're all coming from a perspective that the music is important. Like, there has to be integrity in like how groovy it is. Like, if it's really got like that thing that really makes music make people want to come together, like that attractiveness that can exist with rhythm. And I think that in drop mix, you had something that was so fun to do and just so mind blowing, but the game wasn't quite there. Because it's either, you're aiming for a high score and then your mix doesn't sound great, or you're totally focused on your mix and then you're not going to, be score chasing. But with Fuser, it's sort of like you said, that next level where that tech is there and then some, because, we've got custom instrument loops that you can drop right into mixes. We've got, freestyle that you can do, in which you have a beat timeline that's representing when you should be dropping into the music. So not only you think about creative decisions, there's technical proficiency in what you're doing as well. So there's a little bit of that skill element, but there's a lot of bit of that creativity, right? So like you said, crate digging. The customizations in Fuser are like, I mean, they're wild. It's your stage kit you can customize. So that's the video screens playing behind you while you DJ.
Ooh,
the pyrotechnics that are going off on this. Yeah, right. Please bring it up, because it's quite amazing what you're able to do, and all that you're able to control. And, music is a personal thing to so many people. The fact that you can bring your own soul and style into pretty much every decision you're making in this game, that's really attractive to me. As a musician, as a lover of music, as a lover of games, this is that heightened sense of, oh man, I'm in charge. I'm on stage. I am, the premier DJ in the world playing this festival. And it feels really good. And, like you said, drop mix, we've been doing this for a long time. You go back to drop mix and we have peripherals, and Harmonix is no stranger to peripherals. But to be able to do this, just with whatever system you're playing on, PC, Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation, it's a little bit more accessible. And that was something that was definitely a focus of ours as well. We want good music to be accessible, an enjoyable campaign, something that people are really going to be able to learn what they need to do well, but just have a ton of fun making creative musical decisions while they're doing it. And I really, can only take credit for so much. I love telling you about it, but the people who are doing this are next level, man. I mean, our audio team is unbelievable. The people who are making these different tracks that are in our game, the art team that has designed this beautiful stage and these customization options in front of you. I mean, the team has really been busting their butts on this, and I think it really shows. I mean, I'm blown away at just how beautiful all of this looks and just how deep this actually goes into all the details.
Yeah, so the folks who are listening in the audio version, we've put up a video showing you how you can customize your stage that you're going to be performing on. And it's beautiful. It's like super dope because like you have this crowd in the front and you have the kind of main stage that's there, and you can see like this menu basically of things you can add, fireworks and lights and pyro and all this cool stuff.
Exactly. What you're seeing here is you can change the different lights that come from your stage, of which there are 6 different, totally larger than life, massive, beautiful stages. You can change the fireworks that go off during your show, during different parts in your mix when it's really poppin', as it welcomes you when you take the stage, step out to your adoring fans. You can change the video screens that are behind you, and they'll rotate between a few different ones. But there's tons and tons and tons of options. So you're choosing, you can see here, there's a lot available to you, but there's even more that's coming. You see there's a bit locked, and there's, a few tricks we'll keep up our sleeves as we get a little bit closer to launch. But all the way to what the audience is holding, you're going to be able to make decisions. If you're playing a night show, you want glow sticks or glow balls. If it's the daytime, maybe you throw up some beach balls or some of the corgis. It's really, whatever, player's choice, whatever you want. And I like having that freedom. Maybe I'm a bit of a control freak, but this really speaks to something in me that was really satisfied by having all that control.
No, I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Like when it comes to games like this, and it was the thing that I loved about most of the ways that Harmonix kind of does their games, where they add these little pieces of flair to everything that not only makes the music kind of shine, but there are visuals that go along with that stuff. Guitar Hero was the thing that no one knew was going to be a thing at some point, and then it became the standard for those kinds of games in those spaces. Right. And it feels like Fuser is going to be.
I've done that myself. Don't worry.
And it's weird too, because it's like in my mind, they are so different, but they have so many pieces that are connected in my brain that I'm going to do that for a while.
I totally get. You know what? Our man Josh put it in the best way. He calls Fuser a spiritual successor, and I think that is so beautifully put, because there is that spirit of just that really exciting, I want to touch music, that really, physical, tangible thing. But this is just, a galaxy of that.
Yeah. And I think to a certain extent, I'm going to switch over to some other gameplay. I think to a certain extent, one of the things that I actually really appreciated about that was the fact that because it had this very specific physical part to it in Drop Mix, but now in Fuser it is more digital. It feels like it actually opens itself up to more people, because people are like, well, I don't necessarily want to have a whole bunch of stuff in my room, right? And if you're not really into card collecting, that's a thing too, where it was a good idea, and it was a great idea because it fed that kind of like that need to get the next thing and to get the sets of stuff. But this, it feels like I'll just be able to just jump in day one and say like, oh, all these things are going to be available.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Day one, you can just plug and play. Like, you're good to go. I mean, I remember back in 2008, 2010 or something, when I got my first Rock Band set. And I think if it hadn't been a big box of plastic, my mom might have not fought me so hard over bringing it home. Like, she didn't want that in her living room, because once it was up, it never went down. So she was really onto something with that. But we're really conscious of that too, right? Like, that's a lot of plastic. That's a lot that you're putting out there. And for people to have all that in their house, for us to have to, produce that, we're pretty conscious about, we don't want to be worried about making all of that plastic and putting it in people's homes and forcing them to buy it. So with a controller and with a system of your choosing, you're good to go day one.
Yeah. I one of the things I've definitely wanted to bug you about was music selection is always really difficult. There's so many different songs across so many different genres, and it's just really difficult to say which gets in and which doesn't get in. How difficult are the like internal harmonic spikes about like, all right, so this one doesn't make the cut, but this one is going to be in like whatever DLC pack or whatever thing is going to come down the line, right? Like, how do those conversations go internally?
Yeah, so our audio team is, like I said, like crazy amazing musicians, and they're obviously, like I said, thinking first and foremost about the music. So less than an argument, it's more of a conversation about what styles, tastes, and textures do we need to bring in so that it's a complete picture, right? Like,
yeah.
And that's really hard to do with music, because how do you ever say, oh, that's enough genres? Like, there's so many unlimited options, and you better believe that when we go into meetings, every single person there represents totally different tastes. And I think something that tells me we're doing a good job is that when we play Fuser, that still happens, right? So when I'm making a mix, it's one thing, and then when my coworker makes a mix, it's a totally different vibe. We've had a few different sessions where we just, been playing after one another on a couple of our Twitch streams and some other places, and never is it the same mix twice. I mean, even when I play, I'm not doing the same mix twice, but because of the diversity of the soundtrack that's there, I don't feel like I have to choose between. I feel like it's more of an opportunity to discover. There are songs that did end up in here that maybe if you had asked me just with a cold list, not listening to them, not really thinking about it, what do you want, what do you not want? Yeah. Well, myself, I probably would have chosen some, Whitney would have been in there,
right.
Lizzo would have been in there, blah, blah, blah would have been in there. Like, I have tastes that I definitely would have brought my own musical bias into, right? And as I'm playing Fuser now, there are songs that I never would have picked on my own accord that I open up and I listen to, and I'm like, oh my God, this bass track is my favorite thing, and I'm going to use it in every single mix now. Or, we have a wide array of decades, So all of a sudden I'm listening to something, I'm like, oh, this is a very nice Dua Lipa 20 sound, and this is dope. And then, with the message, like that guitar right on that downbeat, it's something that I think is more of an opportunity that everybody who I've worked with, on music is really excited about. Our music team, they are amazing and they do really good work. And we're very fortunate to be in a position where this is not new to us, right? At Harmonix, right. we have a track record with licensing music that, it goes pretty far back. So, they've been doing really good work for a long time. And I think that relationship that they've built with, different labels and different artists really allows us to be a little bit more flexible in what we're choosing to bring. And it's not about, oh, I need this, I don't want this. It's more about like, okay, what's going to surprise us? What are people going to be most excited about? What song do we absolutely have to have in here? Because it's just like, that bass line is so juicy, which like for me, it's totally Regulate or, The Clash. Like both of those are just something that, I've played enough that I have my own favorite little bits and bobs that I always go to. But I do trust as more music is, released and that we're able to play and talk about as we get closer to launch, everybody will sort of see what I'm talking about because they'll be really excited about certain little pieces of each song.
Yeah, I feel like that's the part too, where you wind up getting into spaces where you're like, you know the like stuff that's gonna hit real hard, or the stuff that's gonna bang. And like the
amount of pages in this notebook that have just 4 songs written in a row somewhere, like feverishly scribbled in the corner, like, okay, the bass from Regulate, the strings from 50 Cent,
right?
The vocals from Party Rock, and then switch in the bass from Party. Like, it's just these crazy little combinations. And every once in a while, I forget to write it down, and I hate myself for it later because I just want to do it again so bad.
It was the thing that saved my ass numerous times was the fact that you could save a mix in Dropmix, right? And I was like, please put this in Fuser. Like, please put this in Fuser because I want that.
So you're absolutely going to be able to record your mixes in game, and you'll be able to directly share them onto your socials from the game.
Oh, that's so good.
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, people want to share music. Something, if we're talking about Harmonix, you think about Rock Band, something it did so well is it lent itself to people playing music together. Yeah. And that's something that we are always focused on. I mean, no matter what the game is, you definitely want to give people an opportunity to be social musically. And now more than ever, we really see that is something people need and they deserve. And it's something that I really enjoy and appreciate. And I think that Fuser's, just another opportunity to do that because you're going to be able to share mixes. You're going to be able to play with your friends. You'll be able to, work on your own skills through campaign and, get to the point where you're excited about sharing your mixes. Because I've come a long way since I picked up the controller. So I'm a little bit more excited about my mixes being out in the world now than I was maybe day one. But I think everybody has a chance to get there.
I know that there were times because I'd streamed a couple times, and I have like a stack of cards this big now at this point in a big old Ziploc bag, ready to
Nice.
go. And I was like, we're just gonna pick stuff at random because I will confess to the internet. My music knowledge is kind of narrow. I'm a child of the hip hop era, but things don't really diverge that much. So when a lot of popular music that is within these games, I'm like, I don't know what that is. So I'm throwing the thing on, and I'm just like, ooh, I don't know if that works with this, but like, oh, that definitely works here. Those Imagine Dragon drums, I'll take those to my grave with me because those drums are just nasty.
Yeah.
When you talk about kind of multiplayer stuff, I know that there is usually a want for competition in this space too. But will folks be able to do, like I was kind of talking about or alluded to before, like kind of co-op kind of gameplay in some way? Like I want to be able to co-stream this with somebody else and possibly do a multi-person set. Basically, that's like, all right, so you go now, and then you just start doing whatever you want to do, and then we'll kind of bounce off of that. Are there ways that like the game is going to be able to infuse or kind of like lend towards more cooperative play as opposed to competitive play?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And to you, I'm going to say follow us at Fuser Game on
Got it.
Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And there's going to be a ton more news coming up. Multiplayer is something we're going to dive deeper in a little bit later in the campaign. But you can imagine we're considering all different opportunities that people be able to experience this amazing, like core fundamental gameplay in a bunch of different ways. But we'll definitely be talking more about that kind of stuff later this year.
Good. I'm excited for that for sure.
Yeah.
One of the other things that we kind of poked at was, again, I think this is going to be a huge game once you start to stream it in the same ways that you saw, rhythm-based games and dance-based games be a thing. One of the things that has been kind of scary in the past couple of months has been the cracking down of music on streaming services. What's the conversation been like for you all in the office about that part of it? Because it still feels a little bit like the Wild West when it comes to how much can I get in trouble for if I'm playing a thing, like I'm literally playing a game that has licensed music in it. Is that going to get me strikes on my YouTube account? Is that going to be a thing? Like what
right. So like I said, because you're going to be able to share socially directly from the game, you will be able to have your different mixes on your social platforms.
Okay.
When you think about streaming, that's something you're going to be able to do and play and stream out. Now, the conversation, I think, if you go a little deeper, becomes about monetization, right? And I think that's a space that there is not a single person who works in video games or streaming or music probably that's not thinking about that.
Yeah.
And that's great, right? Like that's a really exciting place to be where this is something that is happening and this is something that is really exciting. And I think Fuser, if anything, will be an opportunity for that conversation to be, have a couple different perspectives. We'll be able to see what comes of it and how things look. But, for the typical person who wants to share this opportunity or this experience with their friends, that's totally going to be able to happen. And it's something that I'm excited for. I mean, like you said, I've been playing a lot of Fuser. You'll probably have seen me play. If you've been following any Fuser socials, you've probably seen a mix or two of mine. And I cannot wait for somebody to come and kick my ass within 5 minutes of owning Fuser and just be doing things that I'd never even imagined, because I know it's going to happen. And I'm really thrilled for that because I can't wait to learn from my community. I definitely want to get out there and spread the word, drop my own little tips and tricks. And I hope they return the favor because, I'm looking.
Yeah, I think that's going to be when I start to go through the path of like getting into the game again and then like jumping on and seeing what other folks are going to be doing. That's always the best part, which is just being able to see what combinations people come up with that you were like, why would you even, that was fire. Like, how did you get there from here?
Right.
I think in the lineage of music video games like this, it feels like we're at this really good point where the technology is not, the music isn't hamstrung by the technology in a way like it used to be. Like you kind of had to try to figure out ways to finagle things to work together and they didn't really kind of like come through in the same ways. From drop mix to now, what's there been in terms of conversations around like the tech of how music games are kind of grown in this space now? It feels like it's gotten even more interactive because of streaming services and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. it's very different from like the first music games we think of, right? You know, and I think that it's really, for me anyways, is about rhythm action, period. Like if I say music game, I might as well say rhythm action for a lot of my favorite games. You know, all the way from the original Guitar Heroes or Rock Band, or, you know, Tap Tap Revolution on your iPod Touch way back when, if, you know, you remember that sort of thing. And I really liked all those different games, but there is something that's missing, which is that next level of creativity, right? Where I've clocked many hours on Rock Band, but I'm playing the same song when I go back and play it again, right? Which is amazing, and it's a fun experience on its own, and especially when you have the added peripheral, there's something so deep there. But it's still, you know, if I play and when you play, we're doing the same song, it's the exact same experience. Where with Fuser, it's not that. It's, you know, it is anything but that, really. You know, you might, let's say you're in a campaign mission. You're going to have some goals. You're going to have some objectives. You're going to have the crowd making requests. But it's not saying, press this button at this time. It's saying, I want to hear a pop song. And then you go up into your crate, and all you need to do is look for something that's pop. So maybe I choose Billie Eilish's Bad Guy, but, you know, maybe you choose, I don't know, whatever tickles your fancy. That could be Lady Gaga, it could be Whitney Houston, anything that's in that pop genre. You're going to drop some Whitney, I'm going to drop some, you know, Bad Guy, but you're dropping vocals and I'm dropping drums. So even just within those two songs, there are so many different combinations that anybody's going to make. And mind you, on top of that, you know, there's still 3 other tracks that are playing. So when I'm dropping something into the mix, it might be in a totally different key. It might be at a totally different, you know, tempo, and it's going to sound completely different. So you know, we have objectives, we have a goal, we have something that makes, you know, feeds that little competitive side of me and really forces me to refine my skills a little bit more. But it's still something that, you know, my mix is my mix. If you trust me, if you have some people on my team, if you hear a mix that has DMX and some saxophone in it, it's me. I have like a sickness. I cannot stop mixing DMX and Brad Paisley Mud on the Tires. And like, man, if you told me that sentence 2 years ago, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, I love Brad Paisley. I love DMX, but them together, like literally, what are you saying? And now I do it like every other day. Like they're so sick of it because it's the only mix that I'm making nowadays. But, you know, I think that when you talk about how do music games grow, well, we have some badass artists, we have some badass musicians, we have some badass devs that are all just coming together. Amazing campaign designed super well, amazing music, you know, some in-house tracks from Rachel, who's just amazing and is, you know, able to fill in so many different textures that we might not have in game. You know, if you really want this certain kind of drum sound or you want this really crisp snare or something, that's something that we have people that they're so focused on the integrity of the music that we're there on a granular level saying like, what sounds and textures do we need to make this as large a canvas as possible for people to create something out of? And like, that's a pretty interesting conversation. You know, that's something that the creativity of something like Rock Band and Guitar Hero is amazing, but now that creativity exists on both sides, right? For the dev and for the community.
Yeah. I mean, that's again, like, I think that games like this, they just land in a really interesting spot because you wind up, especially if you're a music lover and you're a music head, or if you like, I know people who I have told about this game who are like not in gamers at all. Like they don't play games. They're just like that, but they produce music. They're like all hip hop heads who like make beats and all this other kind of stuff. And I was like, yo, like stuff that we were doing in the studio back in the day, just beat mixing and doing all that kind of stuff. Like people are doing that in these kinds of games in ways that we couldn't even imagine back then.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
There was no way to foresee that this was going to be what it wound up being in those same ways, which I think is fantastic for the space and also like learning up, you know, your musical chops in that way.
I mean, I think Rock Band, my favorite thing about it, not to keep speaking about this, but I think it is important to acknowledge that this game is it is brand new and it's coming this year, but it's, you know, the product of years and years of work in the music video game space. You know, Harmonix has been in this game for a minute, and like they're taking everything that's been learned over that time and synthesizing it into something that I think is really exciting for people. And like, I'm thrilled that I get to come at this point. You know, I grew up playing Harmonix games, you know, like I was a kid when I was doing those things, and now I get to be a part of that process. And like, that's really thrilling to see that evolution. But, you know, when you look at Rock Band, I can't tell you how many songs or bands that I love now and I would consider part of my musical DNA, that if I really get down to it, I heard that for the first time in a Rock Band, you know, like there are so many songs that like artists I have a deep love for still, that like I know that came from the exposure I had available to me in Guitar Hero, in Rock Band, whatever it was. I mean, Guitar Hero 2, like still to this day, one of my favorite game soundtracks, just bomb. And like, I think that Fuser has an opportunity to be that same thing. We're not just saying, here's the top, songs right now of this day. We're saying like, hey, like, open your mind a little bit, expand your musical palette. There's going to be tracks that and you've heard and you recognize, and there's going to be things that maybe you didn't. And like, that's a thrilling part, because those are the things that are going to surprise you the most, right? That's the thing that you accidentally drop into your mix, or you do it in freestyle just to try it. And then it's, one of those tricks you pull out of your back pocket because it's just going to be that unexpected, like just, sensational moment in your mix. And I think for me as a musician, and I know that this is a shared thought from a lot of people at Harmonix, like that's really what we want to do, is like excite people and like get them to feel that like deep love of music like we all do. And Fuser is just a really amazing way to do that. It's so fun. And I think that my other probably favorite thing about it is how welcoming it is. Like it is a music festival. Like the whole point of it is it's a digital music festival, which again is something that is so necessary right now. I know I've been deprived of live music right now. And I think that, as people who enjoy live music and produce live music and engage with live music on such a consistent basis, it was really alive in everybody's awareness that like we needed to do a lot to get that vibe and that emotion and that energy across, right? Like that's not an accidental thing. It's something that we want people to come to and play and feel good about doing it. Because at the end of the day, you are putting yourself out there, right? You're making creative decisions. And like, if you're going to share that mix with somebody, like that's a vulnerable position to be in. And we want to make sure that like players feel, one, I have the tools that I need to do this. Like I know how to play this game. I know it's going to sound good. And also, let me tell you, this tech is so good. Like, it's going to sound good. Like it's going to sound great. Right. Yeah. And part of that is because we want you to, you're not coming. It's not like Guitar Hero or whatever, where you start in a basement, like you're starting at a festival, you're a musician, like, what you're doing. When you put something down, it's going to sound good, but there's more opportunity for growth, right? You still get that like journey all the way to the top. And like that for me is really satisfying. And I think that along that journey, there's going to be so much discovery with different instruments you can make, with different musical skills you'll pick up. Like I've been practicing, and I swear playing Fuser has helped me with my timing, because I see the beat timeline that's right above the bottom of your deck while I'm playing, right? Like I'm bopping along and I just have this visual cue now that's so burned into my mental state that it's like, oh, okay, like that, I'm really focused on dropping things on the downbeat when I'm playing. And, for me that transfers, but, it's so robust and it's so deep, and there's so much you can do with it. I mean, even to the character creator, if we talk about like being creative and being expressive, in the character creator, you have so many clothing options, so many different assets that you're able to play with. But I think something that's really exceptional too is there are so many different body types. There are so many different skin tones. There's a bunch of different representations of all different, kind of diverse populations, and nothing in Fuser is gender locked. So it's really about you going and saying like, here's me as I am, or here's a totally fantastical version of me. And this here in the Fuser world is where I get to just like, let that fly, and do whatever you want. And I think as a musician, I appreciate that permission to be creative so much. And I think that the way Fuser's built really gives people that. And that to me is super exceptional. And I'm really excited. I hope people feel the same way, when they get their hands on it.
You are an amazing guest, because you answered like 5 different questions I was going to hit you with right in one sentence. I was like, so content. Oh, you already hit that. Oh, you already hit that. But that makes me really happy to hear, because I games that I hold very dear are in this lineage. It makes me think back to way back in the day, in the early aughts, when we used to take PS2s to beat battles, to go use those to go do stuff like MTV Music Generator. And then one of my other favorite games is a game that no one remembers. It's called 4 a.m. It came out from Q Games. That was literally a predecessor of what this is going to wind up being, but you didn't have that digital crowd there. You had like a visualizer that represented what that crowd was going to wind up being. So like hearing that this is going to be in that space, and again knowing just how much Harmonix cares about the experience and the music and crafting that thing for you so that you can be the best DJ that you can be. Again, I'm so excited for this game. Like people really don't understand how hyped I am for this thing, and knowing that's going to be coming out hopefully fairly soon, that we'll be able to get hands on this stuff and get a chance to rock out on stream and play it with some folks. I am more excited about it now, hearing how you talked about it and knowing that there are, again, so many folks at the company who care. That
Yeah.
I'm just over the moon for that kind of stuff. I'm curious. Before we let you go, is when you think about your perfect mix, what are at least 3 of the elements that go in that mix at this point?
Wow. Okay. So my perfect mix, man, this is tricky because it really depends on the vibe, right? Like
Okay.
what time of day is it? Like right now, all right, it's 10 p.m. or
Yep.
it's 11 p.m. for me now.
Yeah.
So it's, it's late. For me, might want something a little bit more chill.
Yeah.
So if you know the drums, or excuse me, the keys from Regulate, the like
Yep.
yeah, exactly, like that little Michael McDonald vibe, like something smooth like that.
Yeah.
So I'd have that, and then the bass or the kick drum from Bad Guy. It's that 4 in the floor bass drum, right? So that boom, 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 boom. So good, so good, so smooth. I might not bring in vocals, despite being a vocalist, so I am totally biased, and almost every single one of my mixes has somebody singing, like usually Whitney, because right. But I might not drop in vocals for that just yet, just to sort of build that vibe, right? Because you want something to, I know exactly what I would do. If you ask anybody who I work with, this is the best ever. If you ask anybody, they would tell you, if you were going to ask, like, oh, what's Zoe going to do for mix? Like, she's going to drop a saxophone. There is one of these custom instruments, and there's 2. There's a baritone sax, and there's a alto sax, I believe it is, but saxophone is what it is. But there's a bunch of different riffs, a bunch of different like musical, sort of melodies and ideas that are in these different pads that you'll have that you're able to choose from. And you can either play it over your pre-existing mix, or you can record it directly into your mix. You're actually dropping like live looped tracks into your mix.
Interesting.
It is unbelievable, right? So like, that's the thing, is I would build probably like a bass line where there's no lead anything, just so that I could come in with my own lead instrument. So because not only can I have, one vocal, one bass, one lead instrument, and one, guitar in it, I can have 4 drums. I can have 4 basses. I could have 4 vocals if I wanted. Like, I'm able to drop really whatever. So, I can take some time building to the climax, which for me is when a vocalist comes in, right?
Right.
So I would have my keys, I'd have my kick drum, I would have, let's see, I'd drop those triplet hi-hats from Stir Fry. And then bass. Ooh, bass. There is a really beautiful slap bass line in Don't Start Now by Dua Lipa. And I might bring that in, because this would be kind of like I'm hearing like a boom, 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 bum, 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 bum,
okay.
Like, yeah. So it's like that kind of like slappy nearly, but like more just like groovy. I sound crazy, but it's like what everybody see when I say this people at work, they're like, yeah, of course, man. Like,
no, but
I hear that immediately.
This is what I love though, because it is that thing, right? It's like, I know how I describe certain things,
right?
And no one understands what I'm talking about when I describe things.
Yeah, know what the like,
yes. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, but then I drop in my own custom sax, because that really is me, right? Like, some people, if you know Harmonix, you might know Daniel Sussman, who's been a product manager. He works a lot on Rock Band, but, is working on Fuser, and he wasn't a sax believer quite at first. I played it a couple times in a few early meetings, and he was like, I don't know, man. And then by like the 50th time I did it, he was like, no, you're good enough at this now that this sounds pretty good. So I really think you could turn anybody into a believer, and like, that's my own little taste on it. I'm sure that as I play around and widen my horizons, I'll find some others. But for right now, my perfect mix has to have a little DMX and a little saxophone.
That is perfect. That is amazing.
Yeah.
There's my only want in the world of video game music is no one ever puts didgeridoos in their games. And I want one in there because it would make a dope bass line for anything you want to lay over it. And no one puts one in. I'm trying to put that on Twitter. Put didgeridoos.
I don't know, man. I've heard a lot of didgeridoos, and I don't know. That is a lot of noise.
If you pull it real low, then you might be able to.
You can do. If you're on a deck, you can adjust the volume of different tracks that you've dropped into your mix, which, like, again, if you're thinking about, if you're a DJ, what's up, that's something that if you're really performing, that's the kind of things you're thinking about. And to bring it back to Fuser, it's just a matter of like, I think there will be, this isn't Ableton, right? This is not a music creation software, but it might just, kind of wet that whistle for people who are interested. I have a drum kit right over next to me that's off camera here that I bought right after having Rock Band for a little while, where I was just like, man, like if I played half as much real drums as I played Rock Band drums, I would be okay at drums. And I did that. And it really was a catalyst for me that made me realize what I wanted a little bit more of. And that slight immersion was enough for me to have a lifelong sustained passion. So I really can't wait. And I hope that this, provides a similar opportunity for people who are able to get their hands on it. I'm thrilled. I can't wait to see what people have to say. And I think it's going to be great because I have a blast doing it.
Well, I mean, if you are not sold at this point on what Fuser is going to wind up being, then I have no hope for you. It's got to be something in there that made you really excited, and I am even more excited after having you on the show with us.
Well, when it drops, we'll play together, and we'll get some converts. We'll make some believers.
I want this. You heard it on the show. It's gonna happen. This is what the deal is.
All right, you got me. You got my information. Now we're in touch. You have no excuse to not hit me up.
It is true. It is true. Zoe, thank you so much for coming through tonight. Again, like I'm saying it to people behind the scenes. I was like, yo, we got somebody from Harmonix on the show. I'm super hyped to talk about Fuser. Like, please tell me if you have questions and stuff. And people have things to say, but I'll get to them later. I want to make sure that we don't give away any secrets on the show tonight. But again, thank you so much for coming through. Thank you so much for sharing all that wonderful information about Fuser. And I don't know if there was a date for launch yet. I think I heard
not a date yet, but we'll be around fall 2020. So like I said, you follow us at Fuser Game on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We've got some different live streams coming out from Harmonix. There's different happy hours with different DJs on some various socials. So get in there, follow us, stay up to date. And a bunch more fun information will be coming very shortly.
Dope. Everybody in Brookago, make sure you support the fam. Make sure you go cop Fuser when it comes out, because I'm going to want to beat all of y'all and make dope mixes and tell y'all to so make sure you do that. And we'll be right back after this. What the deal be, Brookago? So that was Zoe Schneider rocking with us here in Brookago, talking all about Fuser Game. If you are not excited about that game and you love music, I don't know what else to tell you. I am infinitely hyped for that particular thing, and I'm so psyched to be able to get to play that bad boy. I like, there are so many cool things about what that game is going to wind up being, and I think the thing that I'm even most excited about is like, it's a social activity thing. And I think that right now, because of all the energy that we have in the space right now with COVID, and because of everything else that we're trying to figure out ways that we can do stuff, like, to be able to play a game like that where you can engage with each other, and it's not really about one-upsmanship. It's just about the love of music and the love of making and creating and stuff like that. So there was a lot of small tidbits in there that I wanted to dig back into. I think crate digging is especially cool. I think building out your kind of set is something that's even super dope, and customizing that thing and making that yours. And I'm just really excited to see just how they're going to bridge all these genres and make that stuff cool, and see how that stuff is going to work, because I love stuff like that. So again, massive love to Zoe. You'll definitely hear more from her on the show. You'll definitely hear more about Fuser Game in the weeks to come, especially when that thing is about to drop later in this year. We're definitely going to get some chances to play that thing and review it. And I'll definitely be streaming the heck out of that for sure. So definitely check that stuff out. So right now we're going to dig into the 411 and talk a little bit about news of the week. So we had a couple of stories this week. I think, there are a lot of things that are happening in the gaming space. I think there's a lot of conversations that are happening around very specific games and around one of the biggest conversations that we heard from this week was about next gen. And I think next gen has had, again, a lot of conversations that are happening in multiple vectors. And there is still some worry and some confusion about how all those things are going to wind up affecting you as a game player and as a purchaser of games and as a consumer. And I think one of the things that we saw this week that was actually really, really confusing was not that one, because that's not the button that I wanted to hit. But it was about, let's see if that one works. Nope, that's not it either. Oops, that's not it. Anyway, I'll fix that stuff in post. It was about Control, which I think was something that we saw kind of coming out and having those conversations about that stuff. Spoilers in chat about what we're going to talk about this week. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was, again, the move from current gen to next gen. It is very, very difficult to try to figure out what those things are going to wind up being because of a lot of different things. I think one of the conversations that we saw happening in the space was, will my games be able to move from current gen to next gen? And I think that was one of the biggest worries for a lot of people was, is that thing going to actually happen? Like, will my things transfer over? Will that stuff actually go from one platform to the other? And there was Control that came out this week and talked about what that was supposed to look like from their perspective. And it was really bad, to be honest. So 505, who's publishing the game, they came up and said, we are trying to figure out how we want to transfer things from one place to another. We're trying to figure out what we're going to wind up doing in that space, how we're going to actually affect all those things happening. And it wound up being something where the conversation turned out to be something that wasn't really good in the way that it was going to kind of be displayed and talked about. It was going to be one of those things where when they initially brought up the conversation, everyone figured that they were going to kind of move and get everything to go in the direction of the ones that we saw kind of, which company did that? I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically move it from free. Move it to a free transfer, move it from a free upgrade over to your next gen console. That did not wind up happening in the ways that we expected those things to happen. So it wound up being that it just didn't sound good from the way that they described it. They basically shared in a tweet today that the game was going to wind up getting a ultimate edition on the next gen consoles. So that next gen edition was going to be at full price. It was going to be in the newest version that you're going to be able to get with all the DLC, all the things you would have gotten in current gen are now going to be pushed over to next gen. And there's no way, if you had the base game, to make those changes or to get that content in a way that was going to actually be helpful to you. There's literally no way for you to, as a consumer of that game, get that particular content in that higher fidelity without you buying the new next gen version of that game, which is amazingly terrible. Like, if there was a way that you wanted to alienate your customer base in a real way, it was absolutely doing it the way that they wind up doing it, which was, oh, let's try to figure out ways to kind of screw you out of your particular amount of, cash, while also saying that you and your friends aren't going to be able to play together in any form or fashion. Like, there's no way for you to be able to, not in this particular game because it's a single player game, but for them to be able to bridge the gap between the two consoles in a real way. That is madness in a lot of different ways, because it really sets up a negative precedent, not only for them as a company and as 505 saying, you have this fantastic game that everyone loves, and the only way you're going to be able to enjoy that thing is if you then pull everybody else out of that pool and say that you can't be in it, which is, again, kind of crazy to understand that that's the route that they're going to wind up going in. one of the things that I've always worried about and wondered about was if you're going to be able to have a new next gen game come into the space, the only way that you're actually going to be able to continue to pull people forward is if you make that thing easy to go from one gen to the next. If you're not trying to gatekeep and to set up walls for people, then what else are you going to be able to do in that space? The conversation that they put out and the piece of the FAQ that they put out was like infinitely bad. It didn't make a lot of sense. It kind of confused a lot of people. And it's just like a really awful way to do it. So you'll have to rebuy that game again at $40 if you want to get the ultimate version. And all those other folks who have it are kind of stuck, who have been playing it on, current gen. There's no way for you to, no other way for you to be able to get to that spot. What I do find really interesting about this conversation is that if you are a console player, this leaves you out in the cold in a really bad way. It takes, agency away from you. It keeps you from being able to do what you want to be able to do with that game. And it also frustrates you as a person who wants to maybe move from current gen to next gen, because you're like, I have to spend enough money to get into the hardware space anyway. But now I also have to spend all this extra money for the games that I already have. It does two things. One, it highlights the fact that Game Pass is really fantastic again. And two, it highlights just how well the PC is going to wind up being in this first couple of batches of next gen tomfoolery and confusion, where I can totally see someone on the PC side saying, hey, we see what's happening in the console side. All you have to do is buy your game once here, and you continue to get all the upgrades forever as long as there are upgrades on our platform. That is going to be very, very different for them to be able to figure out how they're going to work their way out of this conversation. So again, I don't think this is coming from Remedy. I think this is absolutely coming from 505. And 505 as a publisher, this is a really bad look for y'all. Like, this is not a good look at all. This is not going to be a thing where people are going to say, like, holy crap, they're looking out for us. They're not looking out for y'all at all. So that's going to be really rough for them going forward. It does not make me excited about that possibility. It does not make me excited about the $10 jump that's going to wind up happening across the board. Probably. We already saw 2K doing it. Now this with their Ultimate Edition, a $40 upgrade basically to get you to the next version of that on the next gen console. Whew, that is wild. That is nuts, to be honest, that they're going to go in that route and figure that thing out. So I am not excited at the fact that they're going to be able to do that and try to make you pay extra money in that space. So the next piece of news for this week was all about, let's see if this one works. Boom. It did it. So the next piece of news was all about Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima, if you finished and played that game, it was fantastic, of course. It was super, super dope. The folks over at Sucker Punch have decided that they want to put out a multiplayer add-on that's going to happen with Ghost of Tsushima. If you saw my video, you saw my review, I was not super keen on the base game. But I am going to say this, and somebody's probably definitely going to get in my ass about it. I am really excited about this part of the game. I think this is going to be the thing that I actually kind of wanted when it came to Ghost of Tsushima being a thing. The thing I find actually the coolest part about this is that besides the fact that it's going to be, DLC in that space, is going to be an add-on. What I think is going to be cool is like they're building out this world where you're going to be with 2 to 4 players tracking down and basically going after all these other kinds of legendary samurai in the world. That to me is super cool. Like, I don't know if there's going to be anything that's like loot based. I don't know if there's going to be anything in there that's going to be like, you're going to get extra cool stuff. I would assume that that's going to be a thing that's going to happen in there. Like, I have a feeling that that's going to be what actually happens. That part is going to be super cool because you also have to play a role. So it's like the Ronin, Hunter, Assassin, and samurai roles are all going to be individual ones that you can pick, and you're going to actually have a thing that you're going to be able to do that probably no one else on the team is going to be able to do. So there actually is going to be some cool synergy in the way that you wind up playing that game with the folks that you're going to be playing with. Supposedly there's going to be story missions of escalating difficulty. You'll be able to kind of have some challenges there. I am really excited about this. Like, I wasn't super high on the main game. I thought it was okay. But for them to be able to make this be something where you're going to come into it in a way that feels fresh and new, while also being able to, like, use your abilities in real dope ways. Like, I'm super excited about how that's going to wind up playing itself out. Like, if they can figure that out in a real way, I'm absolutely down for whatever that is going to wind up being. So massive love to Sucker Punch. Again, they are thinking outside the box in a way that I think is going to be really smart for that game. For the folks who were already high on it, this is going to be something even better for you to be able to come into the space with. So that's going to be amazingly cool for you. And I'm just really hyped for the fact that they're going to be able to figure out a cool way to incorporate multiplayer into a game that didn't really have it. And it's going to be super dope that they're going to be able to do that. So massive shouts out to them for figuring that stuff out in a cool way too. And last but not least, we have the wonderful folks over at Sony, who I am actually really hyped for what they're going to try to do with, again, the PS5. There was a lot of conversations about what they were looking to, what they were going to try to do from a features perspective. And I think that was something that we still are kind of up in the air about. We don't really know all the things that are going to come out, but there was a really great blog post that happened on the PlayStation blog, and then other sites kind of picked it up. And it talks about the controls in the DualSense controller. Again, one of the conversations that they've been talking about from a real big standpoint has been the haptic feedback in the controller, and how all of that is going to be very different in this particular console as opposed to the previous ones. I think what they're thinking about doing, and some of the examples that they shared were actually pretty fucking dope. So they talked about a couple of games like Deathloop, Gran Turismo, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and a couple other ones. And I'll really just focus on Deathloop and Spider-Man, because I think those were the two that actually were the ones that really made me excited. So Deathloop, in the game, if your gun jams in the game, you won't be able to use your triggers to shoot on your controller while that thing is happening. That's mind-blowing. That's dope. That is immersion in a way that we have not seen before. It's probably going to be really annoying in some ways, but I think the fact that developers are thinking about this stuff in a very cool way, like, that's dope. Like, it won't move. It'll jam in your controller in the same way that it would have jammed in the gun in the game. That's fire. I am super hyped for that kind of stuff. They talked about this other example for Miles Morales, so that when his powers are growing, you'll be able to feel that power transfer kind of through the controller. They talked about it kind of moving and growing from like the left side of the controller all the way to the right side of the controller, through the rumble and through the way that the different actuators and the different rumble parts in that controller we're going to wind up working, so that when you feel yourself like power up in those ways, you feel it through the controller in that same way. Again, early conversations about some of the technology that they had, because they put out this TV ad that showcased not showcased it, but talked about it. This is the stuff that we want. This is the stuff that, when I think again of immersion, when I think about how this stuff is going to look, when I think about how this stuff is going to play, these are the cool moments that I feel we're going to wind up getting that are going to be very, very interesting. If you're watching the Twitch version of this conversation, the tagline for this particular part of the news segment is haptic entanglement. Wait until you get a sex scene in a game with a DualSense controller. My God, it is going to probably be one of the weirdest experiences on the planet, but it's also probably going to be wild as fuck. Who knows what the hell that thing is going to wind up looking like. Witcher with a DualSense haptic controller, that man was, he was fucking everything left and right. And it's probably going to be like that in your controller. You're going to have no battery left because all that fucking that's going to happen in that game. Who knows what happens later on when all that stuff winds up becoming a thing. Who knows? But this is the technology that we wanted. This is the reason why the PS5 is going to win the console war. It's because of haptic fucking. Oh my God. I don't know. It's stupid. It's dumb. But it is one of those things where, again, like, it's going to be fun to see how all of this stuff plays itself out. It's going to be fun to see what the next versions of all these things are going to wind up being. Who's this in the chat says, Aristotle says, so Fleshlight coming to PS5. Probably. I don't want to know what that peripheral gonna look like. I don't want to know what you got to put in what, because I don't want to know, because I ain't touching that controller. That controller gonna be dirty. I ain't messing with it. But hey, if that's your thing, I ain't mad at you. Let your freak flag fly. Do what you got to do. I don't want to be anywhere around your USB ports. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say about that. I ain't trying to be around any of your PS, around any of your Wiimotes, none of your PS moves, about none of your USB ports. I ain't trying to touch none of your stuff in that way, especially during COVID, you nasties. Anyway, wash your hands, wash your butt. But seriously, no joke. This is really cool technology. I think this is going to be something that, if we see developers really engage with it, if we see developers really use the power of the PS5 for good, then the boundaries are endless in that particular way. So I think that'll be something that will be very, very cool to see, and really dope to be able to get our hands on, literally, in lots of different ways. So really quickly, again, I'm super excited for the Ghost of Tsushima stuff. I think that's going to be really cool. This haptic stuff, again, when we hear more about the PS5 and what's going to happen, is going to be pretty fantastic. And like, if 505 is setting the precedent for what this is going to want to look like, what games are going to look like in the cross-gen conversation, we're in a world of trouble. So I'm hoping that this is a one-off bad move, and this is not something that the rest of the industry tries to adopt in any real way, because that shit would be terrible. So before we get up out of here, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been playing this week, and then we'll get up out of here for episode 350 of Spawnomy. So we have been playing a couple of joints this week. I have had the chance to get hands-on with a couple of really fantastic games in the space. I have been actually pretty hyped about a couple of them for sure, because I think when you get a chance to play games a little bit before release, and you get a chance to kind of like mess around with them and get them before the internet kind of gets them, it actually is really great, because then you don't really have the internet kind of getting in your butt about like how things are going to wind up working and all their opinions that kind of come into the space. And I wouldn't say that they sully the conversations. I say that they just add a layer that is sometimes unnecessary, and it kind of clouds the conversation. So one of the games that I've had the chance to roll around with has been Battletoads. I am very excited about Battletoads. Had a chance to start playing this thing early, and I have to say, like, there's some controversy right now about what this game is and how good it's going to be and all that stuff. And I think that, we're seeing up and down conversations about, how good the game is, how fun it is, and all that kind of stuff. And I will say, I am having a blast with this thing. I think it is gorgeous. I think that the gameplay is fun. I think it does some really cool stuff in terms of the way that the gameplay kind of works. The characters feel really close to their iconic counterparts. It feels like the control schemes work really well. And it's not serious. And it's like, you see with Fall Guys right now that you need not serious stuff to play, because it just makes you feel like you're having fun in a way that doesn't make you think about stuff being heavy. And in a time of COVID, like, you need that stuff right now. I'm probably like maybe 2 to 3 hours into the game. And every time that I jump in, I've been playing it cross play between my PC and my Xbox console, and the saves transfer. So like I started it on the PC at first and then went over to the console and was happily and pleasantly surprised to see that my game saves had moved over that way, and I was able to continue the game over there, which was really important and really cool. So that was super dope to be able to see that be a part of their ecosystem, and was really fun. Each character feels very different from each other. I love the fact you can kind of drop in, drop out whenever you want. That part is really great as well. And I love the way that they kind of switch up the game modes a lot. So like you'll have your normal side scroller parts of it, and then you'll have the kind of, kind of like first person perspective. It's not really first person, but it's like, vertical traversal moments in the game where you're like riding on your bike and dodging stuff, and those kind of, dodging parts of the game where you have to dodge obstacles and things like that. They also play a lot with foreground and background stuff, which I thought was really smart. And the best part about it, to be honest, is the game has a really fun sense of humor. Like it does not shy away from being goofy as fuck, which I think again lends to why a game like this can be really cool, and why a game like this can be extremely fun, and why this is a good palate cleanser for a lot of the other stuff that we see in the space, because it's just super cool and a lot of fun. So Battletoads has been something I have really been liking and really been paying attention to. And I would say if you can snag it, snag that joint. I think it's on Game Pass. I'm not 100% sure. But I'm having a blast with it. I know that there's been a lot of folks who have been trying to figure out ways to not necessarily, like, it's not getting great reviews in some places. Engage Family Gaming in the chat says it is on Game Pass, so it is on Game Pass. I have to read some of the reviews to see why people aren't digging it, but I don't know what their expectations were going in. I just expected this to be super light fare and something that you play as a downtime game in between other stuff, and it didn't expect this to be like a super big blockbuster game. But again, I'm having a lot of fun with it. The art style is really fun. I think they've nailed that part of it for sure. I wish it was a smidge faster. That's honest. Like I want the characters to move a little bit faster, but like besides that, everything else is great. I'm digging it, and I would love to know what you all think in Brookago. Like, if you do get a chance to play it on Game Pass, like, let me know what your thoughts are. I'm really actually excited to know what you may think about it, because I always want to hear other opinions about stuff. So I just don't think it's just me thinking that I'm the one that's right all the time. So last game that we've been playing this week has been the amazing Flight Simulator from Microsoft. I am of so many different opinions of this game, because there are in a time where you can't go anywhere and in a time where it's scary to feel like to get on a plane might actually kill your ass. Having a thing where you can explore and go to places that you've been and traverse the actual world in a real way, in really high fidelity, in learning how to fly an actual plane. Like it's such a weird thing. I am not a huge person who loves sims like this, but a game like this has been so cool to just experience. I am infinitely jealous of all the folks who got the big care packages that came with like a flight stick and the foot pedals and all that stuff. Like I can't front. I am mad jealous, because I would love to know what it feels like to play a game like this with that kind of gear. But me just playing it even on a controller, which is still a little bit weird because there's a lot of buttons. As you would understand a plane to be complicated, it is complicated in real life to be able to fly a thing. But even on PC with a controller, it feels really competent. Like I have a pretty good rig. Like my rig is like pretty stable and pretty beefy, and it doesn't chug. It chugs in spots. The load times are pretty long when you're starting. It's loading a whole bunch of data from the internet if you choose to do that version where you get the real-time weather and real-time maps and all that kind of stuff. And just looking at it again, it is stunning how pretty this game is. It is stunning just how they replicate things in real life in real ways. Now, there has been a little bit of controversy around the conversation about the kind of like the best version of the game, where some of the airports are in more detail than the base game. I don't know if that to me makes that big of a difference. I don't know if I would go to SFO in the game and be like, oh shit, I can't see the tower well. Oh, I can't see the things that look that good. I don't know. I can't say. But I do know that the base game with the base planes is more than enough to satisfy you in the stuff that you can play, like the atmosphere and the real-time weather, and going to places where you've been in your actual life and flying to those places in real time. It's just such a really peaceful thing, and I can't front. I love that. I think that is amazing in the times that we live right now, with the energy that we have right now, with the space that everything that's going on in the world. So again, massive love over to the folks at Microsoft for both providing copies of stuff for Microsoft Flight Simulator and Battletoads. We got this really cool gift package as well from the Battletoads folks that has some goodies in it. I'll probably open that up in a day or two on our Instagram channel because there was some cool stuff in there as well. Probably saw other folks kind of opening their boxes on Twitter as well. So we'll be doing it for the folks who haven't seen it. But it's been a good week in terms of games that I've been playing. I just downloaded Mortal Shell. Gonna get some more games in with that. I played the PC version. I want to see what it looks like on console. Just downloaded the PGA 2K game, which is basically the golf club with a 2K sticker on it. That game is pretty good, actually. I played a little bit of it before I got on stream tonight, and already won my first tournament because I'm dope like that. You know what I'm saying? But it was actually a lot of fun because they fine tuned some stuff, and I think the golf game, literally the golf game, needed polish, and I think that 2K taking that franchise and taking that game under its wing, and giving it that polish, actually makes that game a lot more fun than the kind of usual golf game base game that they had before. So I have it on Xbox. If you want to play with me on Xbox, let me know on Twitter. We'll definitely get some rounds in. I'd love to do a golf tournament. A Brookago golf tournament would be fucking fire. That shit would be dope. I would love to be able to do that. So if there are people who want to get that game and play with me, please, let's get it in and let's do that thing. One last thing about and I forgot to talk about this, about the DualSense story. And I tweeted about this, and I'm curious to know how this may work in next gen. I want to know what DualSense new haptic feedback feels like in a game like Mortal Kombat. That to me is very intriguing, of like how fatalities feel with a DualSense 5 controller if they actually implement fatalities into the way that controller works. So just a food for thought kind of thing that ran through my mind and I didn't get a chance to talk about. And I think that would be something that would be very, very cool to see happen in the space. So I would love to see them figure out a way to make that be a thing. So thank you everybody again for coming through tonight. It is a big show. Again, episode 350. So much good news in the space right now. We are rocking, and we are again partnered in their partner program for Reebok. The classic leather legacy series shoe is something that we are a part of. They are supporting us. They are helping us to grow Brookago in a real way. And that is, again, all because of you at home, all because of you here at Twitch, all because of everyone who's ever listened to our show to help us grow and get bigger, doing this thing that we love to do, or doing this thing I love to do, here at Spawn and Me while we make it happen in multiple different ways. And I'll just say, this is just one thing that we have coming. There's a couple of things happening next month and in a couple of weeks that I'm not going to say they're a little bit bigger than even this thing happening. So lots of cool things coming to the forefront for us in Brookago. 2020 is a very good year for us in this respect. And again, that's because of all the support that you've all given us in the community and all that stuff. So until then, we're going to get up out of here. This was a very long show, but it was worth it. Massive love again to Zoe Schneider over from Harmonix, who was brilliant and fantastic. Fuser game is going to be hype as hell. We're super excited for that thing and definitely want to get more of that. Everyone here in Twitch land, we will see you soon. Everyone in podcast land, we will see you all next week as well. Much love to you all. Also, 4 days from now is my birthday. So I'm going to be streaming on my birthday. So the 24th of August is my birthday. So expect a dope stream then coming to you here on twitch.tv/SpawnOnMe. So make sure you tune in for that. We're going to play a bunch of stuff. I don't know what the hell's going to happen, but I'll be 42. So we got to figure out a good way to celebrate the hell out of that. So much love to you all. We'll see you in a bit. We say peace.